This is the Extra Point Podcast. During this podcast, we will dive deeper into our Sunday teaching and share practical next steps for your faith journey. Now, let's kick off the Extra Point.
Hey, welcome to the Extra Point. I'm Cheryl Ross, the Next Steps in Discipleship pastor, and I'm with Scott Beha, our lead pastor here at Southridge Church. And we have another great episode for you. But before we go any further, I want to make sure that if you haven't liked or subscribed to this podcast, that you do it right now. That way you don't miss out on any new content. And be sure to share this with someone so that way they can take their next steps in their faith journey as well. But we are in another week of our series, Rise and Fall, where we are going through the book of 1 Samuel together. And this past Sunday, Pastor Scott, you talked about the difference between a fixed faith and a functional faith and how we need to have a fixed faith.
Yeah.
Just share with us what the key differences of a functional faith and a fixed faith are.
Yep. So first, if you're watching the video of this, I apologize if I look weird. I am freezing right now. So there's nothing wrong with me other than I'm cold, and I'm drinking that and not coffee. So I'm freezing. Back to the what was the question?
Difference between functional and fixed faith.
Functional faith. So I gave the example yesterday. I like my Yeezys better than any other. Mm-hmm. Actually, I've got my Yeezy slides on because my old slides would eventually hurt my feet, whereas these are so big and foamy, they don't hurt my feet. These are uglier than the ones I used to wear, but when it comes to my feet, I go for function over form. I want something that works, whether or not it's really appealing looking or not. That doesn't really matter to me so much. Now, if you could have both, that would definitely be, and that really is what Christianity is. I don't know if I ever really got around to that. That really is what it's both.
Yeah.
But it's first and foremost true. But functional is valuing something that works over anything else, and that is how a lot of people choose their worldview. I told the story of the guy that was a Buddhist who really just came into being Buddhist, he said, because they told him exactly what he needed to hear during a difficult time in his life. Yeah. They said stuff that was meeting the needs that he had, so therefore he goes, yeah, I'll just go with that. Like, he didn't go and look at the history of Buddhism. He didn't go and look at, like, is there any credibility to this? Is there any, supernatural truth or anything like that? It's like, no, they said what I needed to hear, and I just go with that. And honestly, that happens in a lot of different religions, and Christians sometimes like turn their nose up at it and go, oh, well, that would never happen to me. And he goes, no, actually it does. We just have like a more sanctified version of it where we go, look at this guy right here. We have a more like sanctified version of it. Thank you. Where we go like, I'm going to turn to Christ because I'm in a crisis in my life, and I know that God can help me in the middle of my problems. Go, okay, is that true? Yes, it absolutely is. Is that the reason why you should be a Christian? No. I love the old evangelist and theologian Francis Schaeffer. One of my favorite quotes I've ever read during sermon prep. I got this like a handful of years ago. He said, there's only one good reason to be a Christian, and that's because it's true. Because if you come in during a bad time and Christianity helps you get to a good time, if it's functional in that way, then what happens when you're in a bad time and you stay in a bad time? Right. See, then that no longer works. That's functional. It's like it meets a need. Oh, I need hope in my life. And then you come and you find hope, but then once you find hope, then what else are you there for? Right. If you're not there for the fact that it's real and that it's true, then eventually you'll just fall off and fall away, and it won't, like, you'll have this moment in your life where it'll be like a blip on your radar where it was like, man, I was a Christian or Christian like adjacent for these number of years, but now I'm not because it met a need in this season, but it didn't meet a need in this season. Right. That's functional faith. It's transactional. God, what can I get from you? What can you give to me, and this is what I'll give back, and I promise to do this if you'll do this. That's functional faith. Fixed faith, on the other hand, and I loved that definition that I have of fixed that came from, I'll read it off your phone. Right there it is, fixed, to be fastened securely in position or predetermined and not subject or able to be changed. I tell people this all the time about my Christian faith. I'll just be honest. Ever since I became a Christian, there's been plenty of mountaintop moments, but there have been, especially over the last 9 years or so of my ministry journey, there have been more valleys and really, really long, deep, dark valleys than I've ever thought would be possible in the Christian life. And I've told multiple people this. I go, but it really doesn't matter what happens to me in my life.
Right.
I am so convinced of the truth of the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth that I just won't turn my back.
Yeah.
I may not be the stereotypical Christian that's like, oh, happy-go-lucky and joyful all the time, because sometimes it just feels like, I'm hanging on by one thread, but that thread that I have is connected to something real, and so that's enough. Like, I don't actually need my life to be, I wish it were different. Like, a lot of my prayers are asking, and again, like yesterday's sermon wasn't about you can't ask for things to be better.
Right.
You're just supposed to accept your plight and like just trudge on
Right.
through. No, I pray all the time for God to fix situations or to help me through different things or whatever it is whenever I'm in a low point. But a fixed faith goes, but God, I know that you don't have to do that. And if you're putting me through this, I had this prayer yesterday. So right now, this will, I don't know, take it for what it's worth. My favorite place to pray right now is Megan and I bought a really, really cheap hot tub back in January for like $300.
Yeah.
That someone blessed us with here at the church. It sits out on our back deck. No one ever likes to get in it, ever, even though we got it. Now that it's hot outside, we loved it in January, but other than me, I get in it because every day I get home from anything, I feel like death. Like, I feel like my feet are hurting, my ankles are hurting, my legs are hurting, my shoulders are hurting. I feel like I'm falling apart at 37 years old. So I get in all the time, and that's where I do a lot of, because I can, like, look out. Like, we're not too far from, like, a river, and, it's a river. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's just always nice scenery. I'm looking out, and it's just a good place to pray. And I was praying yesterday just because I just been kind of in I don't know, just in one of my, like, lulls that I just kind of go through over the last couple of weeks, months and such. And I was just sitting there praying, going, all right, God, I think sometimes you don't fix these situations in my life like I would want you to, because he knows that whenever I'm down like that, I will go sit in that hot tub and spend 30 minutes with him.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't down in that, I might be inside playing PlayStation or watching, sneaker videos or something else. And so it's like when I am in those low points, I'm so dialed in and connected to God that I think sometimes I go, I think that's why why it's okay, because my faith is fixed. I go, all right, God, when things are good, I know I need to do a better job of clinging to you like I do when I'm in the low spot. And so since I don't do that, maybe I just get put in the low spot continuously, so the way I will always keep getting drawn back to my relationship with the Lord. But that's what a fixed faith looks like. It's like whatever comes my way, I'm fixed on the Lord. And so it can be good, it can be bad, it can be neutral. It doesn't even really matter. Like, I'm telling you, the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth is so overwhelming, as well as even the anecdotal evidence of, like, when you go and talk to people about how God has, like, worked in their lives and worked miracles for people and on and on and on. Like, I was on a call last week for my job with the state. We were doing prayer requests. There's a lady in our state movement that was told she had cancer. She went back for a second opinion scan, and there was nothing there. There was something there the first time. There was nothing there. She had no treatment or anything.
Yeah.
You can't go through too many situations like that and not go, okay, there's probably something there.
Yeah.
And that right there, the reason why fixed faith is so much more important is you are going to have those low points in your life. You're going to have times when you show up and the cancer is still there.
Yeah.
You're going to have times that the marriage doesn't get saved or the relationship doesn't get saved or your kids really do walk away or whatever it is. Like, you're going to lose your job. You're going to go through tough relational problems with your friends or whatever. You are going to have that. And if you have a flimsy, functional faith, you will crumble in those moments.
Yeah.
Because even, just tell you, having a fixed faith in those moments, you're on the verge of breaking.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that fixed faith that's anchored in the cross of Christ and what he has done, your life will be unnecessarily even more difficult than it's already going to be, because life is definitely going to be difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm listening to a book right now called Disobedient God by Albert Tate, and he talks about like what do you do when God goes off script, like when God does something that you don't expect, like he doesn't cure the cancer, he doesn't whatever, like, and he's talking about through these different stories through scripture and stories of like his life and people in his life, and I just like couldn't help but think, man, how often are we like this, that like that's a functional faith thinks that God is just, disobedient or like not doing the things that he says he could do. And we don't realize, I think it goes back to some of what you talked last week, like the blessing sometimes is the fact that like in this low time, you are present with God more than what you might be otherwise. The blessing is that we know God is present with us, whether the cancer is gone or the cancer stays. And I think, making sure to remember that it's not, it's what you said, like that fixed faith is focused solely on if this is the true God. And if he is, then we know the end of the story. We know that we're like one day all of this won't be the case.
Exactly.
And that's the hope that we look forward to, that keeps us steady
100%.
in this time of knowing, okay, it won't always be like this.
The words I would try to describe God, like what you're talking about, sometimes like disobedient, I don't think that's a bad word. I would say sometimes it feels random, even though, because here's the deal, it's not random on the divine side of it. It feels random on the human side of it. I think another word that I heard Tim Keller use once was like, he is not a tame God whatsoever.
Right. Yeah.
So if you think that he's going to listen to commands and do what you think is the right thing to do, or the wise thing, like his ways are not our ways, his thoughts are not our thoughts. Everything he has is higher and better. He's sitting here managing 8 billion people's welfare as well as all of the created order. And so what happens in your life is a blip on the radar, in the sense that you don't know how everything else is working together. You really don't know that. And so that's why sometimes God does feel random. And I wanted to make that point yesterday because, like I said, I made an example week one, or the first week that I was preaching in this series, that I was going through like, oh, we want God to bless us, but are we the type of people that could be blessed? And I was talking about people having kids.
Yeah.
And I know the natural response to that is, are you kidding me? You know how many drug addicts are popping out kids left and right? You know how many deadbeat dads there are out there, and on and on and on. Here we are, good faith. Okay, that wasn't the point of that example. If you heard that and were upset by that example, that wasn't the point. I was saying, like, some people want kids, but are you maturing in a way to make sure that you're the type of person that God can put into that situation? Not that he will or that he won't, and not that he won't put somebody that's not ready in that situation, because again, he is not a tame God. He does not follow a formula, and that's why functional faith is so ridiculous, because functional faith is all about formulas. God, if you will send me this, I will do this. And God goes, no, that's not how it works. I may do that for you, but you can't actually, you have nothing to offer me.
Yeah, I think I see it as like how last week we talked about you can't do the wrong thing and expect to be blessed. Yeah. It's the same way that like doing the right thing, it's a manipulation almost in the opposite way.
Absolutely.
Saying, well, I'll do X, Y, Z, and then I should be blessed. And like, and in that book this morning when I was listening to it, he talked about the older son and the prodigal son story. And how like the older son, his thing was, I've been here doing all this my whole life for you, and yet I've not gotten this, And I think, and he talked about how like that's the majority of us, like we can be in the house doing the work and doing whatever, and we look at it as like that's almost like our idol of like we're doing all the right things, and we think that like if we do all the right things, we should get rewarded for that, but really we're also lost, like within that, within that thinking that if I do X, Y, Z, I'll somehow like hit that magic formula to be able to get all those blessings. and that kind of thing. And then within that, we're looking at the people who don't always do things right, and feel like, you know, we're missing out, or we shouldn't, you know, we're left out of the blessing of the good things. And really, when we should just be sitting back and realizing that, like, the blessing is the grace of God. Like, the blessing isn't dependent on anything we do.
Yeah.
The blessing is legitimately just the grace of God that we have in our lives. And knowing that, like, there's nothing that we can do to actually deserve it.
And that's why I ended the sermon with that picture of the ark and how that points us towards the cross, because I go, listen, because of the cross, your list of things that you deserve or that God should give you or has to give you is pretty limited, given the fact that he's already done everything necessary for you to have what it is that you need, which is his presence. He's already done that on the cross. Anything and everything above and beyond that, the very breath in your lungs, the fact that you woke up this morning, if you have a job, if you have money in the bank, if you've got kids, if you have people in your life that care about you, whether your life is great or whether it is crumbling right now, for the fact of the cross, he has already done more than what sinful humanity ever could have possibly deserved. And so, therefore, we can't sit here and try to bargain, because he has he goes, look, I've already did it. And, in fact, when he's on the cross, he is doing your side of the equation and his side of the equation. That's why you have nothing to offer, because the equation has already been satisfied. There's no transactional thing for you to offer up. The sacrifice has already been made. The blood has already been put on the mercy seat. Now you can come face to face with God with nothing in your hands. You have nothing to offer whatsoever, and you also have nothing to expect. You actually probably have a lot to expect, but nothing that you can actually put expectation on God to go, you have to do this. But it wouldn't take you long of living life to realize that, actually, I do have an unbelievable amount of blessing in my life, that even whenever I'm in my lowest moments over the last decade or so, I go, even in the midst of that, I'm still waking up. I still have my health. I still have a place to live. I still have air conditioning. I have internet. I have kids. I have my wife. I have my family. I have my friend. Even if things are very difficult and all these things, you go, look at all of this. And that's even beyond the fact that I have my salvation, which is the most, that's the prized possession of going, now I have God's presence in my life now through the Holy Spirit, and one day I will get to see face to face the image that was meant to be in the middle of that ark all along. I'll get to see him face to face. I mean, what else do I really need? And in light of eternity, like what, the average person lives 77 years. In light of eternity, you could suffer for 77 years and it still be a blip on the radar of the grand scheme of things. And so it's like, it's not worth it to sit here and try to find what works. What we need to do is find what's actually true, and the cross of Jesus Christ is true. It has a track record of being true. It also is good news, because it means you have absolutely nothing to offer. So it has no expectation on you to get your act together for you to, because that was me growing up in the church. I always thought, well, one day I'll not want to do all the stuff that I'm doing as I get as an adult, and I'll get myself cleaned up, and then I'll come to God and he go, no, this isn't how it happens whatsoever. So, like, you don't have to sit there and go, okay, I'm going to get saved in 3 months after I stop doing this. No. There's no expectation on you whatsoever to come at all. And then once you do, he then takes care of all of that. All that stuff that you think that you got to take care of on the front end. It's the greatest news in the history of the world that the kingdom of God has come near to absolutely everyone, no matter who you are, what you have done. The kingdom of God has come near to you, so therefore you don't have to sit here and bargain with this God. This is what they do in pagan religions, right? Like for Dagon, the god of the Philistines, they would have honored him because they were wanting. They honor him. I'll give you sacrifice. What's Dagon then have to do? He has to send crops. That's their arrangement. And God is the type that goes, you don't have to give me anything, and I'll send crops. Or I won't. But either way, I'll send my presence. Like, it's unbelievable when you really sit down and think about how we've learned about religion, especially here in the West, so much of it is transactional, where it's like, all right, here's these 7 things, make sure you do these. Or here's these 5 things, do this. Here's these prayers, pray these.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not, if you get something out of that, spiritually, great. But if you think that that's putting a hook in God's mouth, forcing him to something, then you are misunderstanding the situation.
Right. Absolutely. So good. Well, that just brings us to kind of your final point, that God does not exist to serve me. I exist to serve him. And it's not, we don't serve him to get something, but we serve him because of how he's already given to us, right? It's out of that overflow of gratitude, of thankfulness, of understanding what exactly he's done, that we then get to go and do those things. And so I would say that if you have been living in a faith that you're worried about, like, what you can get out of it, or trying to see if God will meet your expectations, change your mindset to more of that surrendered faith, that fixed faith that says, okay, God, I'm surrendering to you, and whatever may come, I know that you are true, and that is what I fix my faith on, is the fact that you are the one true God. So if you are interested in finding out more, you have other questions, make sure that you let us know. You can go to src.life/questions, and we'd love to answer your questions right here on the Extra Point. But for now, we are done, and we will be back here again next week with another episode for you.
Thanks for tuning in to The Extra Point. Be sure to subscribe to the Southridge Church podcast and tune in every Wednesday for another episode of The Extra Point.